Okay, so my controversial issue assignments. Today I'm going to be talking on cultural appropriation. I'm here with my brother to discuss the issue,
Hello.
and we'll just be talking. This will be like a podcast kind of a thing. Okay, so I want to start on your general standpoint on cultural appropriation. What do you believe?
Me personally, I I don't really I don't really see it as a problem that people are talking about. Not like I don't honestly I don't care what you do with how you want to look and how you want to act, as long as it's not hurting me in any way, then I'm good. So yeah.
Yeah, so basically, he is against the whole demonization of cultural appropriation and how people, get canceled for it, cancel culture, these kind of things. And then I will be for it. I'll be arguing for cancel culture, and I'll be arguing the benefits and how it affects the people. So I wanted to actually talk about that. So those who are affected negatively by this. So I actually talked to my friend recently, and she was talking about her personal experience with cultural appropriation. She talked about when she was like, I don't believe in like elementary or middle school, how people used to like, oh, ask if your hair is real, wanted to touch her hair, braids and things, because she had braids.
Yeah.
Right, and she felt like kind of ridiculed. Sometimes people would even make fun of it, saying that, oh, like if it fell out, sometimes your braids would fall out. And she said, ew, I don't want to touch that. People would be like this, basically. And so she feels personally kind of attached to it. That first off, they're the same, like people different of her different culture who ridicule it also want to adopt it at the same time, if that makes sense. That they should not be allowed to ridicule her as she has her personal experience and then want to take it because it looks nice, as just an accessory when it was such an important thing to her. That's what she argued. So what do you think about this, knowing like someone's personal experiences with this?
Well, to an extent, you have to be realistic, right? A couple of kids in kindergarten, when you're grade 3, aren't obviously thinking about the best thing. Kids are mean. Kids are they're mean. They don't know any better. And when they get older, they start to find their styles, and they actually start to know about society and say, oh man, that's not a good thing to say. I shouldn't have said that. And I feel like you just gotta think about it logically. Like, if someone likes a style, and as long as they're not like spiting your style, your culture, but they're embracing it by trying to mimic or do it, I say there's nothing wrong with that. And to the people who do ridicule people, that's just mean. That's just racism. But I don't think there's anything against just trying out a style.
Okay, so I want to ask you about the people that are using their culture, or maybe they wear clothes to express a certain day, maybe in their religion, or a certain time in their life. Like, let's say someone has died, they usually wear a certain type of clothes. So what if people were to then take that like culture or the clothes and wear it as fashion? What would you then say is that cultural appropriation? Is that okay? What would you think?
I think that it when it comes to religion, because religion is a very touchy subject, I feel like you have the right to, you're kind of warranted to like not hate, but like be against people using be angry, exactly. You're kind of like, you're wanted to be angry because this is like your culture and you're like your faith and stuff like that, and people just using it for fashion. And in that sense, when it comes to religion, I actually I understand how people feel. And I guess tradition would be the same thing too. Doesn't have to be religion, but tradition and stuff like that. Then I feel like, yeah, you'd it'd be okay to be angry at that. Yeah.
Okay, let me see. So you're not completely all for cultural appropriation in a sense,
I guess.
Okay. So personally, actually no. I also wanted to bring up some examples. Specifically, this is cultural appropriation done you could say in a positive light. Depends on how you want to take it. So, back in like the wars, usually when the Americans went to countries such as like Korea, for an example,
Yeah.
they would bring their food, their rations, and they would bring it to Korea. And then when they left a lot of their stuff there. So then Koreans, they took pretty much all of that and they now adopted it into their culture. And so that's why you see most of like a lot of the food that they use is a mixture of American culture, such as spam, like with the ham in the can.
Yeah.
They use this for a lot of their cooking, but it's because the Americans left it behind. So same thing with their music. The Americans left behind their rock and their pop culture, things like that. So Korea, in a way, appropriated the American culture at that time. Would you say that as like a positive or a negative? How would you take this information?
Well, with terms of like, cause you have to see it in a certain way. Like America came and helped Korea
Yeah,
out,
they did come to help
and
Korea out.
America didn't really intentionally say this is how you're gonna run your society, right?
Yeah.
They're just like, okay, we helped. This is what we're doing. Cool. And then they left and they did their own thing, and then they left behind an impression, an impacting impression, and then Korea took those things, right? So
Yeah.
I'd say
It's a positive.
it'd be a positive with some negative lights, cause things can be taken different ways.
Yeah.
In terms of food
Yeah.
and like in foods and stuff like that, overall positive. There's nothing wrong with expanding new foods, like cultures clashing together to create new like what's it called? Food. I don't know. What's it called? What's it called? Palettes?
Sure. It doesn't matter.
I'm gonna. Okay. Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with cultures when it comes to food, but in
music.
maybe in music, you could see it as like a copying, but in that sense it's like a hybridization, and in terms of music that's done everywhere, like with the whole Afro pop and Afro hip hop and all these things. Musical hybridization has been done so many times that's not a problem. So I just say it's an overall
Do you see
positive.
it as a necessary, like something that's necessary, cultural appropriation in a way? In terms of the hybridization that you're talking about.
Not necessary, but inevitable.
Yeah.
Like with the rise of globalization, like it's gonna interconnectivity. It's bound to happen. Cultural appropriation is bound to happen, and you can actually a prime example of cultural appropriation is in hip hop, and we're also using Korea, and also other cultures. The whole in hip hop, the whole way quote unquote the swagger that someone carries themselves in hip hop, the clothes they wear, how they dress themselves, and how they speak has kind of been like appropriated amongst all around the world.
Yeah, it came from Black
Yeah.
American culture.
It came from African American culture and soon became world's pride popularity, and people think that's what's cool.
Yeah.
So, it's a positive in a sense, yeah.
Okay. So, how do you feel about, let's say, celebrities that are getting dragged for braids and dreads, things like this, because, people feel as though that celebrities, the only reason they're wearing it is to glamorize. They think it looks nice. How do you feel about these things? Because let's say Kim Kardashian, for an example, she was dragged because she had braids. She braided her hair. And other celebrities as well who wear dreads. How do you feel about this?
I think that's stupid. I think it's dumb that, because maybe if Kim Kardashian she was wearing a hijab, or she was wearing a religious symbol or something like that.
Yeah.
That would be an outrage, I guess. I'd still whatever, right? But it's like she wants to braid her hair because she thinks it looks really good.
Yeah.
And now she's getting bashed for braiding her hair. And me personally, I don't know the culture not culture, but like the importance of braiding your hair. I always thought it was just a fashion trend.
It's a fashion that started in Africa with African women.
Yeah, and it's a fashion trend that they think it looks cool. So what's stopping other people that aren't African from thinking it looks cool also? because I don't think it started as a religion, anything, right? So if someone, it's like someone finds a new hairstyle, and then they get angry when other people want to try that hairstyle and say, oh, this hairstyle looks cool on me. And even if it doesn't look cool on them, if they want to have the hairstyle, they have the right to that. So I think it's dumb. And with dreads, I can kind of get where it came from, because dreadlocks actually came from the word dread. Dread is like negative, right? Like, oh, he's dreaded. You know, he dreaded his existence. Stuff like that. Okay. Stuff like that. Dread is like, it actually, dreadlocks came from Jamaica, and like when like white people would come and they wouldn't cut their hair as a statement. That's why the Jamaican state, how dreadlocks came, because they wouldn't cut their hair as a statement. And then the white people call it dreadlocks, or they call it dreadlocks, and then their hair grew out without being cut. So
I believe the oldest dated dreadlocks, I believe it came from Egypt, didn't it?
Sure.
The oldest dated dreadlock was Egyptian. In like the hieroglyphs or whatever, it was drawn with people with dreadlocks. So technically, I guess it's not
even Caribbean.
Yeah, or Jamaican. It's not technically that, but it's just something I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I also wanted to speak on law, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
So there is this law that people were proposing, in terms of cultural appropriation, that would basically ban schools. Well, I mean, by definition, the law bans schools from sending kids away or telling them to take off their braids. For example, let's say you go to like a public school a private school, and they have a dress code, and then you have braids. And braids don't match the dress code, so they would ask you to take it off and change it. So these laws basically are kind of banning schools from like doing things like that.
Yeah.
Being able to express yourself through your hair and things like that, for an example. But some people also want a law that would ban other cultures from basically appropriating this, other people's culture, so to protect themselves, if that makes sense, from like other people taking it out of their culture out of context, taking it to glamorize their culture and things like that. So these laws, people want to propose it, people want to pass it, through legislation. And what do you think about these laws?
And would the laws, would the penalties be like fines and jail time?
Yeah, basically fines usually.
Okay, I think that's for whoever proposes those ideas. They're not thinking straight. I'm not gonna go to this extent and say it's stupid, but when it comes with it's just bound to bring up more trouble. When you start putting laws, like, yes, we'll have a social norm, and believe it or not, social norms act better than laws in some cases. Like, the fear of like being outcasted, like socially or something like that, is even more than someone that most would actually think. I feel like with laws that will make it a lot worse. There'll be not a cultural divide, and the sharing of cultures is important, and maybe religious, even religious, like it would create more problems than what it would solve. It, like, if all of a sudden someone wants to let's say someone like they like black culture or something like that, and all of a sudden they want to start wearing braids and they think it's cool, and they get fined for not being black. That's a whole new divide that's just gonna come up, and then it's gonna have an uproar, and then it's gonna create a new group of people fighting against it, and we're gonna have riots, and it's like we want to be able to have dreads, and we don't want them to have dreads, and then it becomes racial, and then la-di-da. It's just too much problem for what it's trying to solve. It creates too much, and honestly, if you really don't want people to appropriate your culture, if you don't want people to create your appropriate culture, like you have a group of people, you should make that a social thing. It shouldn't be come into legislation or laws in a way. You should make it a social thing. Oh, it's like in America, freedom of speech. You're allowed to say whatever you want.
Freedom of expression.
Freedom of expression. And
I see
Charter
what you
rights
mean.
of freedom.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's like, one more thing. It's like, let's say something like the N-word. It socially, you're ostracized if a white person or someone who's not black were to say the N-word, you're socially ostracized.
Yeah.
But you're not legally ostracized. And that's a perfect example of something that's bad, but it's not dealt through legally, it's dealt through logistically.
Yeah, so you're saying law shouldn't be involved
Yeah.
to mandate it. Okay, I see what you mean. Well, I just wanted to ask again for last thoughts. If your mind has been changed, general thoughts, things like that, and what you believe, see if it's changed, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd say yes. Yeah, my mind has actually been changed. Coming into it, I was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with cultural appropriation. Wear whatever you want, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The people who are they're just sensitive. They're just like, whatever.
Yeah.
But my mind's changed in the sense of religion. When you bring up religion, that's a whole other ballpark, and it's understandable for people to be sensitive when it comes to religion. But apart from that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been the cultural appropriation controversy assignments. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Bye.